Every day you are writing the story of your future, sentence by sentence, line by line, through your habits, your thoughts, your choices. The tragedy is that 95% are writing the story of failure, and they don't even know it. In this lesson, you'll discover the 10 rules that quietly decide everything about your future. These rules separate the 5% who succeed from the 95% who fail. They'll show you why most people drift into failure without meaning to, and how you can chart a deliberate course toward success. If you've ever wondered why hard work alone doesn't guarantee results, or why some people seem to attract opportunity while others miss it, these rules are the answer. They are timeless, unchanging, and once you practice them, your future is no longer left to chance. It becomes the harvest of deliberate living. Now I know what you might be thinking. You've heard promises before. You've been told success is about motivation or talent or luck. And yet, most of those messages leave you where they found you, working hard but never moving forward. That's because they skip over the foundation. They forget that life is not governed by moods or chance. It is governed by rules. Break them, and you pay the price. Follow them, and life opens its treasures. Most people never learn them, or if they do, they never practice them long enough to see their power. That's why so many stay trapped. But once you know these rules, once you practice them daily, your life cannot remain the same. So, here is what we'll do together. Over the next hour, I'll walk you through the 10 rules that change everything. Some will seem obvious at first, but you'll see how few ever practice them. Others will feel uncomfortable, because they demand discipline where the crowd seeks ease. And some may surprise you, because they reveal truths you've never been told before. We'll uncover the rule of thought, the rule of goals, the rule of attitude, the rule of persistence, and the rule of service. We'll see why 95% of people fail and how you can join the 5% who succeed. And before we finish, I'll give you one clear challenge, something you can begin today that will anchor these rules in your own life. What I'm about to share is something most people completely miss. They live their whole lives without ever realizing it. Here it is. Success always begins with a direction. And the tragedy is, most people never set one. Think of it like this. Imagine a great ocean liner leaving the harbor. One has a captain, a crew, a chart, a destination, and a clear course. Another, equally fine ship, is pushed out to sea without a captain, without a crew, without a chart, without a goal. Now, you already know which ship will arrive and which will drift, perhaps wash ashore, perhaps sink, but never arrive anywhere worth arriving. People are the same way. 95 out of 100 are like that second ship. They never decide where they want to go, and so they drift, pushed by winds and currents, never knowing why life didn't turn out as they once hoped. The stakes couldn't be higher, because every day you live without a goal, every day you drift, is a day lost forever. Wasted years pile up like sand, and before long, a man finds himself at 65, looking back not on a life of purpose, but a life of accident. He didn't mean to fail. Nobody means to fail. But because he never meant to succeed, he drifted into failure just the same. That's why the first rule that will change your future forever is purposeful direction, the habit of setting clear goals. It doesn't matter whether that goal is to become the best teacher in your town, to build a business that serves thousands, to raise a family in love, or to create a work of art that inspires generations. What matters is that you've chosen. What matters is that you've taken the helm of your own ship. Now, you might be thinking, but what if I don't know what I want? What if I can't see my destination clearly? Let me tell you the truth. Most people don't know because they've never asked themselves the question. They've never sat down with pen and paper, or even sat quietly with their thoughts and said, where do I want to arrive? And until you do that, you'll continue drifting. The difference between the person who writes one clear goal on a card and carries it every day, and the person who never bothers, is the difference between the captain who plots a course and the sailor who goes wherever the tide takes him. One is deliberate, the other is accidental. And life does not reward accidents, it rewards direction. I'll give you a simple example. Take two men, both 25 years old. Both start out in the same neighborhood, with the same schools, the same opportunities. One sets a goal, to become a skilled craftsman, respected in his trade. The other says, I'll see what happens. 20 years later, the craftsman owns his own shop. his customers trust him, his children admire him, and his life has grown in purpose. The other is still drifting from one job to another, never satisfied, never quite knowing why his efforts never added up. The only difference is this: one made the habit of setting a purpose, the other didn't. Purposeful direction is not just about big dreams. It's about the habit of choosing every single day. Winners ask themselves, does this action move me toward my goal or away from it? Losers never ask, and so their days are filled with busyness but no progress. And here's something powerful. You don't need to know the whole journey before you begin. A captain does not see the entire ocean from the harbor. He sees the first marker, the first course, the first day's sail. But he knows the direction. And because he knows the direction, he is certain of arrival. You don't have to see the whole future, you only have to choose the next right goal, and move toward it deliberately. So let me give you the challenge for this rule. Before this day ends, take a card, yes, a small card, and write one goal upon it. One clear, definite purpose. Carry it with you. Read it every morning when you rise, every night before you sleep, and in every spare moment during the day. Let it become the compass that directs your thoughts, your actions, your habits. Because the truth is simple, purposeful direction is the foundation of all success. Without it, you drift into failure. With it, your future begins to take shape. And this brings us to the second rule, one that builds directly on this foundation. If direction sets the course, then reflection keeps you on it. Most people never stop to examine themselves, and that is why they repeat the same mistakes year after year. In the next part, we'll uncover the habit of self-examination, the simple practice that separates those who grow from those who stagnate. Here's something most people never do, and it costs them their entire lives. They never stop to look in the mirror, not the mirror that shows the face, but the mirror that shows the soul. They never pause long enough to ask the questions that matter. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Where am I really going? Are my habits, my choices, my thoughts moving me closer to the life I want or farther away? And because they never ask those questions, they never find the answers. They simply go along day after day, living by habit, carried by routine, moving with the crowd, until one day they look back and wonder why the years slipped through their fingers without ever bringing them the fulfillment they once hoped for. This is why the second rule that will change your future forever is the habit of self-examination. Winners practice it, losers avoid it. Those who succeed take the time to reflect on their own lives, to measure their actions against their goals, to confront themselves with honesty, and those who fail, they refuse to look. They busy themselves with endless activity, filling their days with distractions, television, gossip, work they don't enjoy, and noise that keeps them from ever hearing the quiet voice inside that is asking for something more. And so they miss it. They go on living outwardly, while neglecting the inner life that actually shapes their future. Let me paint the picture. Imagine two men who start in the same place, at the same time, with the same opportunities. One of them adopts the habit of reflection. At the end of each day, he asks himself, what did I do today that moved me toward my goal? What did I do that held me back? He notices his own mistakes, he corrects them, he learns from them, and slowly, quietly, he grows. The other man never bothers. He laughs at the very idea of self-examination. He says, I don't have time for that, I'm too busy. And so he repeats the same errors over and over again, never realizing that he's caught in a cycle of his own making. 20 years later, you can hardly recognize that these two men began alike. One is living a life of direction, growth, and purpose. The other is still drifting, wondering why nothing ever changes. The only difference is the habit of reflection. Self-examination is not about harsh judgment. It is not about condemning yourself or living in regret. It is about clarity. It is about knowing yourself so that you can direct yourself. It is about seeing the weeds before they choke the garden and pulling them up while they are still small. The man who never reflects lets those weeds grow unchecked. He lets his resentments fester, his fears multiply, his habits solidify into chains. The man who reflects sees the weeds early, and he removes them before they take hold. And over time, the difference is as great as the difference between a well-tended garden bursting with flowers and fruit and an abandoned field overrun with thorns. Now, you might be thinking, but isn't reflection uncomfortable? Isn't it painful to face your own mistakes, your own weaknesses? Of course, it island. That's why most people avoid it. But let me ask you, which is worse? A few moments of honest discomfort today or a lifetime of regret tomorrow? Winners accept the discomfort because they know it brings growth. Losers run from it, and in doing so, they run straight into failure. Remember this truth. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is looking fear in the face and acting in spite of it. And reflection is one of the simplest, yet most courageous acts you can perform. Here's how to practice it. Each evening, take 10 quiet minutes and look back on your day. Not with criticism, not with harsh judgment, but with honesty. Ask, did my actions today move me closer to my goal? Did my thoughts build me up or tear me down? Did my words bring encouragement or sow discouragement? Write down what you discover. Tomorrow, choose one thing to do better. That's all. One small correction, one small improvement. Over time, these small daily reflections build into massive changes. Because success is never the result of one great leap, it is the result of 1,000 small corrections practiced over years that keep a man on course toward his goal. If you've ever driven a car on a long journey, you already know the principle. You don't turn the wheel once and then hold it still for hundreds of miles. You make small corrections constantly. A little to the left, a little to the right, over and over until you arrive at your destination. Life is the same way. Self-examination is how you keep your hands on the wheel. Without it, you veer off course, sometimes so gradually you don't even notice until years later. With it, you arrive exactly where you meant to arrive. So remember this. The habit of self-examination is the safeguard of purposeful direction. Rule 1 sets the course. Rule 2 keeps you on it. Together, they form the foundation of success. Without them, you drift. With them, you grow. And when you practice them daily, you begin to live deliberately instead of accidentally. And now that we've built this foundation, it's time to face the great enemies of success. Because even with purpose and reflection, there are weeds that will creep into the mind if you do not guard it. Fear, doubt, resentment, conformity, these are the habits that destroy more futures than anything else. In the next section, I'll show you exactly how to guard your thoughts, and why this single practice determines whether you harvest abundance or failure. Here's something most people never realize until it's far too late. The mind is soil, and it will grow whatever you plant in it. The earth does not care whether you plant wheat or poison. It will return to you whatever seed you sow. The mind is the same. If you plant faith, gratitude, expectancy, you will harvest abundance. If you plant fear, doubt, and resentment, you will harvest failure. And the great tragedy of life is that most people never choose what they plant. They let anything fall into their minds, gossip, worry, fear, envy, and then they wonder why their lives are full of weeds. Think of it this way. A farmer who leaves his land unattended does not come back months later to find golden fields of wheat. He comes back to find weeds, thorns, and briars. Why? Because weeds grow automatically. They need no cultivation, no effort, no care. They spring up on their own. Wheat, however, must be sown deliberately. It must be planted, watered, cultivated, protected, if it is to bear fruit. And so it is with your mind. If you do not guard your thoughts, if you do not deliberately plant the seeds of success, then weeds will grow there by default. And weeds always choke out the harvest. Now, let me tell you why this matters so much. Every result in your life, every success, every failure, every fortune, every loss, began first as a thought. That thought, repeated often enough, became a belief. That belief, acted upon day by day, became a habit. And that habit, multiplied over time, became your destiny. That is why it is so dangerous to leave your mind unguarded. A single thought of fear, entertained long enough, becomes a habit of worry. That habit of worry leads to decisions made from fear. And those fearful decisions lead to a life smaller than it could have been. The same is true for resentment. A single thought of bitterness left unchecked becomes a habit of complaint. That habit poisons relationships, kills opportunity, and drives away the very people who could have helped you succeed. All of it begins in the mind. That is why you must guard your thoughts as you would guard a fortress. Let me give you an example. I once knew a man who spent his life thinking about debt. Morning, noon, and night. His mind was filled with it. He would say, "I can't afford this. I'll never get out of this hole. I don't know how I'll pay the bills." And because he thought about debt constantly, his actions flowed from that thought. He took no risks, saw no opportunities, and lived always in fear. And his life reflected exactly what he had been thinking about. Another man, starting in the same place with the same income, chose to think differently. He said, "Every day I'm getting better. Every day I'm serving more. Every day I'm moving closer to freedom." And because he filled his mind with that thought, he acted boldly, served more generously, and seized the opportunities that came his way. 20 years later, one man was still in debt, still complaining, still afraid. The other had built a life of freedom, and the only difference between them was the seed they planted in their minds. Now, you may be thinking, but how do I guard my thoughts when the world around me is filled with negativity? The answer is simple, though not easy. You become the gatekeeper of your mind. Just as a watchman at the gate examines what comes in and what stays out, you must do the same with your thoughts. When fear knocks, you refuse it entry. When envy whispers, you shut the door. When resentment rises, you cast it out, and in their place you plant gratitude, faith, and expectancy. You feed your mind with ideas of growth, with stories of courage, with examples of service, and day by day those seeds take root until they become the habits that shape your future. Let me give you a practical way to do this. Begin each morning by deciding what you will think about that day. Write it down if you must. Say to yourself, "Today I will think about growth. Today I will think about opportunity. Today I will think about the ways I can serve." Carry that thought with you, as you would carry a coin in your pocket. Each time your mind drifts to fear or resentment, bring it back to your chosen thought. At night, review your day. Ask yourself, did I guard my thoughts well? Did I allow weeds to creep in? Did I cultivate the seeds I wanted to grow? And if you failed, do not condemn yourself. Simply resolve to do better tomorrow. Remember, the harvest does not come in a day. It comes through daily cultivation, repeated until it becomes habit. So let me say it as plainly as I can. Guarding your thoughts is not optional. It is not something you do when you have time. It is the very foundation of success. For you will become what you think about. The man who thinks fear becomes fearful. The man who thinks faith becomes faithful. The man who thinks service becomes successful. The law is exact. It never fails. And the only question you must answer is, what will you allow yourself to think about today? And this brings us to the next rule. For even if you guard your thoughts, there is another danger that must be faced. It is the danger of conformity, the habit of simply copying what everyone else does without asking why. And since the crowd almost always fails, to follow the crowd is to choose failure. In the next section, I'll show you how independent thinking separates the few who succeed from the many who do not. There is a reason why conformity ruins more lives than almost anything else. The majority is almost always wrong. That may sound harsh at first, but if you look at the evidence, you'll see it's true. Think of that great statistic I've shared before, 100 men all starting, even at the age of 25, each believing that by 65 they'll be happy and successful. Yet what happens? By the time those 100 men reach retirement age, only one is rich. Only 4 are financially secure, 5 are still working, and 54 are broke. That's 95% who failed. And here's the truth hidden in that number. If you do what the crowd does, you will get what the crowd gets, and the crowd fails. That means the habit of independent thinking, the courage to stand apart, is not just an interesting idea, it is the dividing line between success and failure. Most people never dare to think for themselves. They take their opinions ready-made, served up by the evening news, by their neighbors, by the office chatter. They choose their careers not because they love them, but because someone told them it was safe. They buy things not because they truly need them, but because everyone else is buying them. They live their lives the way leaves are blown in the wind. Whichever way the crowd drifts, they drift too. And then they wake up in middle age or old age, wondering why their lives never amounted to much. They never stop to realize that when you follow the majority, you are almost guaranteed to fail because the majority always does. Let me tell you a story. I knew a man who stayed in the same job for over 30 years. He disliked the work from the beginning. He had no passion for it, no spark, no sense that it was his purpose. But he stayed because that's what everyone does. He said, I can't take risks, I can't try anything new, I can't step away because what if I fail? And so he conformed. He followed the safe path. Yet when retirement came, he had nothing to show for it but regret. He looked back and admitted that the years had slipped away, and the safe path had been the most dangerous path of all, because it cost him his dreams. Another man, starting in the same place, chose differently. He asked himself, what do I truly want to give my life to? What would make my work meaningful? And he followed that, even though the crowd told him he was foolish. He was ridiculed at first. People whispered that he was taking a risk, that he should stick to the safe path. But he persisted, and 20 years later, he had built a life of purpose, of service, and of abundance. Same starting line, different endings. And the difference was simply this. One conformed, the other thought for himself. Independent thinking does not mean being rebellious for the sake of rebellion. It does not mean rejecting every idea simply because others hold it. It means pausing to ask, is this true? Is this right for me? Does this path lead where I want to arrive? It means measuring the crowd's advice against the results the crowd actually gets. If the majority is in debt, dissatisfied, insecure, and afraid, why would you follow their example? If 95% fail, why would you live as they live? Success demands that you step off the beaten path. It demands that you chart your own course. And yes, that takes courage. Because the moment you stop conforming, you will feel the weight of resistance. People will tell you you're wrong, that you're dreaming too big, that you should be realistic. But understand this. The people telling you that are usually the ones who have already surrendered to mediocrity. Do not let their surrender become yours. Now, I know the objection. Someone might say, but if I think for myself, what if I make mistakes? Of course you will. Everyone makes mistakes. But here is the key difference. When you think for yourself, your mistakes are your own, and you can learn from them. When you conform, your mistakes belong to the crowd, and you learn nothing. Independent thinking gives you the chance to grow. Conformity keeps you small. Winners embrace their own errors and turn them into stepping stones. Losers copy the crowd's errors and repeat them endlessly. That's why independent thinking is the fourth rule that will change your future. So let me give you a simple way to begin. The next time you face a decision about your work, your money, your time, your future, don't ask, what is everyone else doing? Ask instead, what do I truly want? What is right? Where does this choice lead me in 5 years? In 10 years? If the crowd is headed one way, and you know in your heart it leads to mediocrity, have the courage to go the other way. Remember, the safe path is rarely the right path. Independent thinking will make you lonely at times, but it will also make you free. And that freedom is worth everything. Because the crowd is going nowhere. They are drifting, waiting, wishing. You were not born to drift. You were born to direct your mind, to choose your own course, to live deliberately. Rule 3 told us to guard our thoughts. Rule 4 tells us to stand apart. Together, they prepare you for the greatest truth of all, the strangest secret in the world, that we become what we think about. And in the next section, we'll uncover exactly how this law works and how it separates winners from losers every time. Here's something most people never grasp, though it stares them in the face every day of their lives. We become what we think about. That is the strangest secret in the world, and it's also the most powerful law of success. Yet because it is so simple, most dismiss it. They are looking for something more complicated, some hidden formula, some trick of chance, when in reality the entire future of a man or a woman rests on this one truth. Whatever you allow to dominate your mind will shape your life. If you think growth, service, and contribution, you will live into growth, service, and contribution. If you think fear, lack, and resentment, you will live into fear, lack, and resentment. The mind is the seat of destiny, and the vision you hold in it is the seed of your tomorrow. Let me show you why this matters. Every person alive thinks, but few think deliberately. They let their minds wander wherever habit, gossip, and worry carry them. Their thoughts are filled with images of bills they cannot pay, people they resent, opportunities they believe they cannot reach. And because they think those things, they act in line with them. Their very lives shrink down to match the smallness of their thoughts. On the other hand, the few who succeed form the habit of filling their minds with positive visions. They see themselves serving others. They see themselves growing day by day. They see themselves free, confident, and secure. And because they hold those images, they act in ways that make them real. Life always moves in the direction of its dominant vision. Consider two men who start in the same job, on the same day, at the same desk. One fills his mind with worry. He says to himself, "What if I'm laid off? What if I can't get ahead? What if I never make enough?" Every day his mind rehearses lack, fear, and limitation. The other man fills his mind with vision. He says, "Every day I'm learning. Every day I'm becoming more valuable. Every day I'm moving closer to freedom." Over the years, those thoughts sink into their subconscious and then into their habits. The worrier plays it safe, avoids risk, misses opportunities, and eventually proves his own fears true. The man of vision takes chances, grows in skill, attracts opportunity, and eventually proves his faith true. 20 years later, they are living in two different worlds, yet they began at the same desk. The only difference was the vision each man chose to hold in his mind. Now let's be clear, this is not about daydreaming. This is not about wishful thinking. A positive vision is not a fantasy. It is a deliberate choice to direct the power of your mind toward the good. It is the habit of holding before your mental eyes an image of who you intend to become and what you intend to give. The farmer does not simply wish for wheat, he plants wheat. But before he plants, he first envisions the harvest. In the same way, the man or woman who succeeds begins with vision, but then acts to make it real. Positive vision is both the seed and the compass. It gives direction to your thoughts, energy to your efforts, and meaning to your days. And here is the danger of ignoring this rule. If you do not deliberately hold a positive vision, your mind will default to negative images. The weeds of worry will grow, the thorns of resentment will take root, and soon you will find yourself living a life smaller than you were meant to live. Most people are in this condition. Their minds are like fields left to themselves, and so they reap nothing but weeds. They don't realize that life is simply returning to them the harvest of the thoughts they've sown. But once you understand the law, once you take up the habit of filling your mind with positive vision, you can never again drift in ignorance. You'll see the results begin to show, slowly at first, then faster, until your life begins to resemble the image you've held in your mind all along. So, let me give you the challenge. Beginning today, form the habit of holding a positive vision. Each morning, when you wake, close your eyes for a moment and see yourself living into your goal. See yourself serving others, growing in skill, gaining confidence, living in abundance. Hold that picture before you. During the day, whenever fear or resentment tries to creep in, replace it at once with your vision. Say to yourself, "This is where I'm going. This is who I'm becoming." And at night, just before you sleep, see it again. Because the last thought you hold before rest will sink deeply into your subconscious, and your subconscious will begin working on it even as you sleep. Day by day, the habit of positive vision will reshape your entire destiny. So remember this. Winners think in terms of growth, service, and contribution. Losers think in terms of fear, lack, and resentment. And the mind returns to each exactly what is planted in it. Rule 5 is positive vision. It is the seed of all success. And now we must look at the next habit, for vision alone is not enough. It must be joined with direction, with a goal as clear and definite as a compass that guides a ship across the sea. In the next part, I'll show you why goal setting is not just useful but essential, and how it transforms a vision into reality. Now, vision by itself is powerful, but unless you give it direction, unless you pin it down to something definite, it remains only a dream. That's why the 6th rule that will change your future forever is the rule of goal setting. And here's something most people never realize. Life always rewards the definite. It never rewards the vague. You cannot drift your way to success any more than a ship can drift its way across the sea and arrive at the exact port it set out for. Without a chart, without a compass, without a captain at the wheel, the ship will go wherever the winds and tides push it, and that is exactly what happens to most lives. But when a ship has a destination, when it has a charted course, when the captain knows exactly where he intends to arrive, no matter the storms or delays, the ship eventually gets there. And in the same way, when you fix your life upon a definite goal, life itself begins to move in that direction. Most people never set a goal. They mistake activity for progress. They think because they are busy, they must be moving forward. But the truth is, busyness without direction is nothing but drift. It's like rowing hard in a circle. You end the day exhausted, but still in the same place. The winners know better. They form the habit of writing down a clear, definite goal. They carry it with them. They think about it every morning, every evening, and in every spare moment. And because their minds are fixed upon that destination, their actions begin to line up with it. Opportunities are recognized, decisions are made with clarity, energy is conserved for what matters most. Slowly but surely, life begins to move in the direction of the goal. Let me give you an example. A teacher who decides her goal is to become the finest teacher she can possibly be is a success the moment she sets that aim. A craftsman who says, "I will build the best furniture in my town," work that people can trust and love, is already a success. A mother who says, "My goal is to raise my children with love, discipline, and wisdom," is already succeeding the moment she fixes her heart upon it. For success is not the reaching of a destination. It is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. That's the key, a worthy ideal, a goal that matters, that uplifts, that serves. The moment you set such a goal and begin moving toward it, you are successful. The tragedy is that 95% of people never do this. They never stop to decide what they want. They never form the habit of carrying a goal, of reviewing it daily, of shaping their lives around it. And so they drift, year after year, and failure comes not by accident but by neglect. Now, here's the simple practice that can change everything for you. Write one definite goal on a small card. Make it as clear and as specific as possible. Carry that card with you everywhere. In the morning, when you rise, read it. At night, before you sleep, read it again. During the day, when your mind wanders, take it out and remind yourself of it, and then measure your actions against that goal. Ask yourself, does this move me closer to my aim or farther away? When you form this habit, you will discover something remarkable. Life begins to arrange itself around your purpose. Ideas you would have missed come to you. People who can help you are drawn to you. Circumstances that once seemed random now seem to line up in your favor. It is not magic, it is simply the mind working as it was designed to work. For we become what we think about, and when your thoughts are fixed on a goal, life itself begins to bend toward it. I want you to imagine for a moment a man without a goal. He gets up in the morning because the alarm clock rings. He goes to work because it's Monday. He does what others tell him, follows the routine, comes home tired and goes to bed, only to repeat the same cycle tomorrow. He is busy, but he is going nowhere. Now, imagine another man with a goal. He wakes in the morning with purpose. He knows where he is headed. He sees every task, even the small ones, as a step on the road to his destination. He uses his time wisely, his energy deliberately, his thoughts constructively. One man drifts, the other directs. And after 20 years, the difference between them is so vast it can hardly be believed. And yet the only real difference was that one carried a definite goal, and the other did not. So, remember this, the habit of goal setting transforms a vision into reality. Without it, you are like a sailor lost at sea. With it, you are like a captain at the helm, guiding your ship steadily toward a known port. And this is not theory, it is a law as exact as gravity. Fix your thoughts on a definite aim, and your life will move toward it. Ignore this, and you will drift into the 95% who fail. Rule 6 is the rule of goal setting. It is the compass that keeps your vision true. But even this is not enough. For once you have a vision, and once you have a goal, the question becomes, how do you hold yourself to it, day after day, against the weeds of worry, the distractions of life, the temptations to quit? That's where the next rule comes in. The seventh rule is daily mental discipline, the habit of guarding your mind as a fortress, of feeding it only what serves your purpose. And in the next part, I'll show you how this habit alone can make the difference between a dream that fades and a destiny that becomes real. Now that you understand the law of vision and the practice of goal setting, the question becomes, how do you keep your mind fixed upon that goal in a world that is constantly trying to pull you away? This is where the seventh rule comes in: the habit of daily mental discipline. It is the practice of guarding your mind like a fortress, of refusing entry to thoughts that weaken you, and of feeding it only what strengthens your purpose. Without this discipline, your vision fades, your goal drifts, and your life slips back into the current of the crowd. With it, your mind becomes a mighty instrument, and your future becomes a deliberate creation. Most people never realize how porous their minds are. They let anything wander in. They wake up and immediately consume the news, filling their thoughts with fear, anger, and distraction. They gossip about their neighbors. They envy their friends. They complain about their jobs. They give their minds no better food than weeds, and then they wonder why their lives are full of frustration. But your mind, like a field, will grow whatever you sow. If you plant weeds, you reap weeds. If you plant wheat, you reap wheat. The law makes no exceptions. And weeds grow automatically. No effort is required for fear and resentment to flourish. Success requires deliberate sowing, daily sowing, disciplined sowing. That is why daily mental discipline is essential. Imagine two farmers. One rises each morning and scatters wheat upon his field. He waters it, tends it, and guards it from pests. The other farmer does nothing. He sleeps late, ignores his land, and says to himself, "It will be fine." Months later, both return to their fields. The first finds golden wheat ready for harvest. The second finds thorns so thick he can hardly walk through them. And yet both men had the same land, the same weather, the same opportunity. The difference was daily discipline. One sowed deliberately, the other let nature sow weeds. Your mind is no different. If you feed it daily with gratitude, faith, expectancy, and vision, it will return to you a harvest of success. If you neglect it, the weeds of fear, doubt, and failure will take over, and they will choke out your dreams. Here's how you practice this rule. Each morning, before the noise of the world reaches you, take 5 quiet minutes to fix your mind. Read your goal. See it in your imagination. Fill your thoughts with gratitude for what you already have, and expectancy for what is to come. Say to yourself, "Today I will hold my thoughts steady on what I want, not on what I fear. Today I will guard the gates of my mind." During the day, whenever negative thoughts try to enter, cast them out and replace them immediately with the picture of your goal. Do this again and again, until it becomes habit. And each evening, review your day. Ask, did I guard my mind? Did I sow the seeds I wanted to grow? In the beginning, you will fail often, just as a new farmer may lose crops to weeds. But with persistence, the habit takes hold, and soon your mind begins to run on discipline instead of drift. The consequences of ignoring this rule are everywhere. Look around and you will see them. The man who spends his nights worrying about bills, who fills his mind with fear, finds himself living in the very conditions he dreaded. The woman who complains about her neighbors, who fills her mind with resentment, finds her relationships sour and her opportunities vanish. These are not accidents. They are harvests of undisciplined thought. The mind, left to itself, always runs downhill. It must be trained, directed, guarded, if it is to produce abundance. Now, let me show you the reward of this practice. Once you form the habit of daily mental discipline, something remarkable begins to happen. Your mind becomes calm, steady, focused. The noise of the world loses its power over you. Opportunities that once slipped by unnoticed now stand out clearly. Ideas that once seemed out of reach now come to you naturally. You begin to live deliberately, not reactively. And slowly but surely, your outer life begins to reflect the order you have established in your inner life. This is the law, and it never fails. So remember this: daily mental discipline is the bridge between your vision and your destiny. Without it, your dreams remain fragile, easily destroyed by the weeds of fear. With it, your dreams grow roots, and they cannot be shaken. Rule 7 is the habit of disciplining your mind each day, of sowing the right seeds and pulling up the weeds. And once you master this, you have built a mind that works for you, not against you. Now, even with vision, with goals, with discipline, there is still another set of qualities that decide whether a man will stay on course. For life will test you, storms will come, obstacles will rise. And in those moments, what separates winners from losers is not talent, not luck, but two qualities, attitude and persistence. In the next section, we'll uncover these qualities in depth, and I'll show you why they alone can mean the difference between failure and triumph. Here is something most people never discover, and yet it colors every day of their lives. Life will always reflect back to us the attitude we bring to it. It is as exact and predictable as a mirror. Smile into the mirror, and the reflection smiles back. Scowl into it, and the reflection scowls in return. In the same way, when you approach life with gratitude, with expectancy, with enthusiasm, life opens its doors. When you approach it with resentment, doubt, and bitterness, life closes them. This is why attitude has been called the magic word it holds, the power to determine the quality of your days, your relationships, and ultimately your destiny. Most people, sadly, never take responsibility for their own attitude. They believe it is something that happens to them. If circumstances are pleasant, they feel pleasant. If circumstances are unpleasant, they feel sour. They live like weather vanes, turning whichever way the wind blows. But winners know better. They form the habit of choosing their attitude each day, no matter the circumstances. They understand that while they cannot control every event, they can always control how they respond. And that response, whether it is gratitude or complaint, faith or fear, sets in motion the chain of results that follow. Let me tell you a story. A family once moved to a new town. Before they had even unpacked their bags, a neighbor came by and asked, "What were the people like in the town you just left?" The father replied, "They were unfriendly, cold, hard to get along with." The neighbor nodded and said, "You'll find the people here are much the same." Later that day, another newcomer asked the same neighbor the same question. But this time the man said, "The people where we lived before were kind, helpful, and warm." The neighbor replied, "You'll find the people here are much the same." What was the difference? The town had not changed. The people had not changed. The only difference was the attitude the families carried with them, and life, as it always does, reflected their own attitude back to them. This is not just a clever story, it is a law of life. You attract what you are. Your attitude is a signal, and the world responds to it faithfully. If you walk through life expecting good, believing that opportunities will come, believing that people are worth serving, then good comes, opportunities arrive, and people respond in kind. If you walk through life expecting the worst, looking for faults, doubting everyone, then you will find the worst, faults will abound, and people will reflect your doubt back to you. The difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful one is often nothing more than the attitude they carry day after day. Now you might wonder, but how can I control my attitude when life is difficult? When things go wrong, how can I remain positive? The answer is this: your attitude is not a reaction, it is a choice. And like all habits, it can be trained. Begin each morning by setting your attitude deliberately. Before you step out into the world, take a moment and say to yourself, "Today I will expect good. Today I will be grateful. Today I will look for opportunities. Today I will treat every person as the most important person on earth." Carry that attitude with you and watch how life responds. You will find that people treat you differently. Opportunities appear where before there were none, and even obstacles seem smaller when faced with confidence and gratitude. But let me also warn you, if you neglect this rule, if you allow yourself to slip into bitterness or complaint, life will reflect that too. You will see obstacles everywhere. You will find fault in others. You will feel weighed down by burdens. And the more you dwell on them, the heavier they will grow. That is why attitude is not something to be left to chance. It must be guarded and chosen as deliberately as your thoughts and your goals. So let me challenge you with a simple practice. For the next 7 days, begin each morning by choosing one word to describe the attitude you will carry: gratitude, expectancy, enthusiasm. Write that word down and carry it with you. Let it remind you, every time you see it, of the choice you have made. And when the day ends, reflect on how it shaped your experiences. You will be amazed to see how life itself seems to bend to your attitude. Remember this: life does not pay us according to what we want, or even what we do. It pays us according to what we are. And what we are is reflected most clearly in the attitude we carry. Rule 8 is the rule of attitude. It is the magic word that shapes your days, draws people toward you or pushes them away, and ultimately opens or closes the doors of opportunity. And now, having understood the power of attitude, we must look at one final quality of character that separates the 5% who succeed from the 95% who fail. That quality is persistence, the rare habit of continuing long after others have given up. And in the next part, I'll show you why persistence alone has been called the iron quality of success. If there is one quality that almost single-handedly separates winners from losers, it is this: persistence. Talent is common. Ideas are common. Enthusiasm at the beginning of a journey is common. But persistence, the steady, unglamorous habit of continuing day after day, long after the initial excitement has faded, long after the crowd has turned back, that is rare. And because it is rare, it is priceless. Most people quit too soon. They begin with fire in their hearts, they make a start, they talk of plans, they even labor for a while. But when obstacles appear, when results take longer than they expected, they grow weary and stop. And so they fail not because their dream was impossible, not because life was unfair, but because they abandoned the field too early. The harvest was almost ready, but they stopped sowing, stopped watering, stopped waiting, and so they never saw it. Think of the farmer who plants a field. He covers the seed with soil and waits. Day after day he waters, day after day he tends. But for weeks there is nothing to see. If he is impatient, if he says, "Nothing is happening, this is useless," and plows up the seed to check on it, he destroys it. But if he persists, if he continues the daily work, the seed finally breaks through the soil, and in time he reaps the harvest. Success in life is no different. Growth is invisible before it is visible. The man who persists is rewarded, not because life suddenly changed, but because he remained faithful long enough for the invisible work to become visible. The man who quits is punished, not because life was cruel, but because he gave up before the results could appear. I think of Thomas Edison, who tried more than 10,000 times before producing a working electric light bulb. 10,000 failures. Imagine if he had quit at 1,000 or 5,000 or even 9,000 attempts. The world would have been darker, and his name would be forgotten. But because he persisted, because he refused to quit, he changed the world. His success was not a matter of genius alone, it was a matter of persistence, and the same principle applies to you. Your dream may not require 10,000 tries, but it will certainly require more than one. It will require steady, patient effort, often with no visible reward at first. And in those moments, persistence is the only thing that will carry you through. Now, you may be thinking, but what if I persist in the wrong direction? What if I'm wasting my time? That is why persistence must be joined with purpose and self-examination, the rules we have already spoken of. If your direction is right, if your goal is worthy, then persistence will never be wasted. Every step, every try, even every failure, becomes part of the learning, part of the preparation, part of the invisible work that leads to visible success. Winners understand this. Losers do not. Winners say, "I will keep going until." Losers say, "I tried once, and it didn't work." That difference of attitude is the difference between a harvest and an empty field. Let me show you the danger of neglecting this rule. A man begins with a dream of building his own business. At first, he is excited. He talks about it constantly, he plans, he invests, he works long hours. But when the first setbacks come, when sales are slow, when problems arise, he says, "Perhaps this isn't meant to be." He grows discouraged, he listens to the doubters, and soon he gives up. Another man begins the same way, with the same dream. He too faces setbacks, slow days, and problems. But instead of quitting, he persists. He says, "This is part of the process. Success is not immediate. I will keep going until I see results, and in time, results come." His persistence is rewarded. His business grows. His dream becomes real. Two men, one dream, two endings. The difference is persistence. So let me give you the challenge for this rule. Decide today that you will never quit on a worthy goal. Decide that you will persist until it works, until it grows, until it becomes real. Expect obstacles, for they will surely come. Expect discouragement, for it will surely visit. But when it comes, remind yourself, this is the test. This is what separates the 95% who fail from the 5% who succeed. Most will turn back, but you will persist, and because you persist, you will succeed. Remember this: persistence is the iron quality. It is the rare habit that guarantees results in the end. Talent without persistence leads nowhere. Vision without persistence remains a dream. Even discipline without persistence fades away. But persistence, joined with purpose, joined with attitude, joined with service, makes success inevitable. Rule 9 is persistence. It is the daily decision to continue when others stop. And in the next part, we'll uncover the final rule, the crowning habit that gives meaning to all the others. For without it, even success feels empty. But with it, your life becomes rich, not only in money, but in fulfillment. Here is the final rule, and it is the one that brings all the others together into a complete and meaningful life. Without it, every success you build will eventually feel hollow. Without it, wealth will leave you restless, fame will leave you empty, even achievement will feel shallow. But with it, your life takes on a depth and a richness that nothing else can supply. The rule is this: true success is found in service beyond self. It is the habit of making your life about more than what you can get, but about what you can give. The rewards of life are always in exact proportion to the service you render. And when you make service the center of your efforts, life rewards you not only with money, not only with opportunity, but with peace, fulfillment, and the quiet knowledge that your days have mattered. Most people never learn this. They believe success is about taking more, grabbing more, securing more for themselves. They think the way to win is to hold tightly, to fight for every scrap, to guard what little they have. And yet, the irony is that those who live this way always end in lack. Their lives shrink, their relationships sour, their opportunities dry up. Why? Because life is built on contribution. The river flows because it gives. The tree grows because it produces fruit. The sun shines because it pours out light. And the man or woman who withholds, who refuses to give, who lives only for self, cuts themselves off from the very law of growth. But the one who serves, the one who contributes, the one who asks each day, how can I add value? How can I leave this place better than I found it? That is the one to whom life gives back in abundance. Consider the teacher who gives herself to her students, not for recognition, not for riches, but because she loves to see young minds awakened. Her service may not make headlines, but it creates ripples that shape the future. Consider the craftsman who pours his skill into each piece he makes, not cutting corners, not seeking only profit, but because he wants to build something of real worth. His service builds trust, and trust builds prosperity. Consider the mother who devotes herself to raising her children with love and discipline, shaping lives that will in turn shape others. Her service may go unseen by the world, but it is the very foundation of society. These are examples of true success, service beyond self. Now let me warn you, if you neglect this rule, if you build wealth without service, if you chase fame without contribution, you will eventually find yourself empty. I have seen many men accumulate fortunes, only to discover that money alone cannot fill the void inside. I have seen people win recognition, only to realize that applause fades and leaves them restless. The only success that endures is the success built upon service. When you serve, you gain not only the outer rewards of life, but the inner rewards that money can never buy: peace of mind, a sense of purpose, the knowledge that your life has mattered. Here's how to practice this rule. Each day, in whatever work you do, ask yourself, how can I give more value than I am paid for? How can I serve more generously than is required? How can I make this day better for someone else? If you are in business, ask how you can serve your customers more fully. If you are in teaching, ask how you can serve your students more deeply. If you are at home, ask how you can serve your family more lovingly, and then do it. Form the habit of service, and you will discover that opportunities, wealth, and satisfaction begin to flow back to you in ways you never expected. Service beyond self is not only the final rule, it is the crowning rule. It is the rule that gives meaning to purpose, that gives depth to goals, that gives joy to persistence. Without it, the other 9 rules may still bring you success, but that success will eventually feel hollow. With it, your success becomes a blessing, both to yourself and to others, and that is the greatest future you can create. So remember this: the 10th rule that will change your future forever is service beyond self. Make your life about more than what you can get. Make it about what you can give. And when you do, you will discover that life, in its own mysterious way, gives back to you far more than you could have imagined. And now, with all 10 rules before us, let us gather them together into one clear message, and I will give you one final challenge that will ensure these rules are not only remembered but lived. And now, we stand at the end of this journey together. We have walked through the 10 rules that decide success or failure, the 10 habits of thought and action that shape every future. And I want you to notice something: none of them are beyond your reach. None of them require extraordinary talent, or luck, or a gift that only a few are born with. They are not reserved for the privileged or the powerful. They are simple, practical, repeatable rules, available to every man and woman who chooses to live by them. And that is the great truth of life. Success is not an accident, and failure is not a mystery. Both are the direct result of rules, lived or neglected, practiced or ignored. Think of where we began with the image of 100 men, all starting out at the same age, full of hope, believing they will succeed. Yet only 5 end up living the lives they wanted, while 95 drift into failure. They did not plan to fail. But because they never meant to succeed, because they never practiced the rules of success, their lives became accidents. But you, having heard these truths, can never again live in ignorance. You now know what separates the winners from the losers. You now know what changes a future: purposeful direction, self-examination, guarding your thoughts, independent thinking, positive vision, goal setting, daily mental discipline, attitude, persistence, service beyond self. 10 rules, each simple in itself, yet together they form a foundation as strong as stone. Remember this affirmation: we become what we think about. That single sentence holds the key to all of it. The thoughts you allow into your mind become the habits of your life. Those habits shape your character, and your character determines your destiny. If you think fear, resentment, envy, and doubt, you will reap poverty, frustration, and failure. If you think faith, gratitude, service, and purpose, you will reap wealth, freedom, peace, and fulfillment. The law is exact. The harvest is certain. And now, you must choose what you will plant. So here is my challenge to you. Before this day ends, take one of these rules and begin practicing it deliberately. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for more certainty. Don't wait for permission. Begin now. Write down one clear goal. Examine yourself honestly. Guard your thoughts today. Set your attitude this morning. Decide that you will persist no matter what. Look for one opportunity to serve someone more than they expect. Begin with one rule, and tomorrow add another, and then another, until these 10 rules become the daily habits of your life. And if you do, you will find that success is not something you chase, it is something you attract by the person you become. And let me leave you with this thought. Most people will hear truths like these and nod in agreement, and then go back to drifting. Don't be among them. Don't drift with the 95%. Stand with the 5% who choose their future, who live deliberately, who serve generously, who persist until the harvest comes. Success is yours the moment you begin practicing these rules. Your future is not uncertain, it is predictable. And now you hold the rules in your hands. So remember, we become what we think about. Guard your mind, choose your goal, discipline your thoughts, persist in your purpose, and above all, live a life of service. These are the rules that change a future. These are the rules that will change yours forever. And when you are ready, join me in my next lesson, where I'll reveal one daily practice that locks these rules into place, a practice so simple that most ignore it, but so powerful that those who do it never slip back into drifting. It is the difference between those who try once and quit and those who live these rules for a lifetime. That is the message I'll share next, and it will be the anchor that makes your success inevitable.